This is a quick explanation of the institutional self-evaluation report that we are soliciting feedback on. So what is the ISER? You probably know, but in case you don't, let me explain a little bit. This is the document that we submit to the accreditation body in order to get our accreditation reaffirmed. The contents of the ISER, there's an introduction, including the overview of student achievement data. There's some technical stuff, eligibility requirements and compliance with policies. That's pretty pro forma. There's a quality focus essay, which is sort of an overview of some general new direction or project that the college will be highlighting for the coming years. But the meat of it is 4 standards. These are all standards we've got to meet. Standard 1 focuses on mission, academic quality, and institutional effectiveness and integrity. Standard 2 is about student learning programs and support services. Standard 3 is about resources, and Standard 4 is about leadership and governance. And within each of these standards, there are different elements. So for instance, Standard 3, which is about the college resources, is broken into 4 areas: human, physical, technology, and financial resources. And then in turn, in each one of these areas, what the standards really present you with is 128 statements. And our job in this report is to show that this statement is true of us. So Standard 3 again, for instance, human resources in Section A. Here are 2 of the, I think, 14 statements about our human resources. Administrators and other employees responsible for educational programs and services possess qualifications necessary to perform duties required to sustain institutional effectiveness and academic quality. So our job is to show that, yes, this statement is true of us, to explain how it's true of us, and to give some evidence that it is true of us. What do we talk about here, for instance? We would talk about selection committee procedures, about min-quals, about human resources, how we look for faculty or staff or administrators, and so on. So what will actually be in the ISER in order to talk about these 128 statements? Each standard, I should say, overlaps a good deal with the other standards. So in fact, we talk about most elements of college planning and procedures and activity in most of the standards. But each standard does have its own focus. So for instance, in Standard 1, which is about mission and academic quality and so on, here you're going to read a lot of references to program review, curriculum development, some discussion of SLOs, quite a lot about institutional planning. We talk a lot here about the Planning, Research, Innovation and Effectiveness Office, equity. These are all things which get discussed in Standard 1. Standard 2 is probably the most important of the standards because it goes to the whole point of the college, which is student learning. And here we talk a lot about program review, curriculum development, SLO assessment. We talk about Flex Day, equity, about distance education and learning communities, academic support services and student services. We discuss institutional planning. In Standard 3, again, resources, there's a lot about our selection process, evaluation process. We discuss resource requests and professional development opportunities for faculty and staff and administrators, technology resources, computers, what have you. Also distance education and educational technology resources. There's a lot about policies governing these things, and that's all in Standard 3. And in Standard 4, there's a lot describing our institutional planning, our administration, our participatory governance. The planning manual gets mentioned a lot here. About integration with the district, quite a bit of Standard 4, as with Standard 3, is really district stuff. Allocation of responsibilities, about board of trustees. And then, as I say, our job in the ISER is to show that each statement is true of us and to give evidence that it's true of us. So here's a lot of the evidence sources that we typically use. There's a lot of use of our policy and planning documents, the educational master plan, the planning manual, organizational charts, the college index, institutional plans, contracts, program review, handbooks. I've put in here the curriculum handbook, the distance ed handbook. There's going to be an assessment handbook, the faculty handbook. All those are brought in as evidence. And of course, websites, for your learning community, for your committee, we will reference the websites. And then examples. So again, we might show that a statement is true of us. We might say that we might point to a policy or a master plan or some sort of principle, but we also want to show that we actually do these things. Like we might have a policy that we might have a committee that is supposed to organize a flex day, but we want to show that we actually do have flex days. I mean, I know, of course we do, but we need to show it. So the kinds of examples we use include a lot of committee minutes. Could be from Academic Senate or IPC or whichever committee is relevant. Extracts from program review, where we say, for instance, that faculty do indeed do SLO assessment. We want to give evidence from program review that shows people, in fact, reporting on that. If we say that we have lots of flex opportunities for faculty, well, we want to show agendas. We want to show maybe flyers for special events. Emails or calendars can show records of meeting, and some of the standards do talk about communications. You might use a syllabus or some other document as an example of something that's outlined in the standards. So a lot of quite granular stuff is used as evidence. The quality focus essay is a separate thing. We're not really including that here because it's more an overview. That's something which we'll probably discuss in IPC. And it's something which focuses, as I say, on some activity going forward. So that will be considered in a separate process, or probably through IPC. So what's our timeline right now? The timeline is we've already had a preliminary round of feedback. Right now we are doing an all-college review and feedback on the standards, and this period closes March 15th. By then we will take all our feedback and comments and we will incorporate everything into a final draft. This will be sent to IPC for approval by March 27th. It will go to the Board of Trustees in April and get approved April 24th. It's still a draft, but at that point it should be all but done. It will get the final approval from the board at the end of July, and then August the 1st it is officially submitted to our accreditation team. And I haven't mentioned it here in the timeline, but the accreditation team will be visiting at the end of September next year to do their college visit. So where do you come in right now? We need you to have a look at this document. And what we really need to know, first of all, is have we accurately described college processes, committees, functions, procedures? Are we saying things that are true? And the other thing we'd like to know is, have we missed any good bit of evidence that could really support an important point? And this is where the more eyes we can have on the document, the better. We've put up a page on the college website at Accreditation Self-Study. I'm just going to link there. Here we are. This page has got the 4 standards in PDF form and a comments form as I scroll down here. So if you have a comment to make on standard 1, you click the box, you make your comment, and this will be folded back to the authors. Just a couple of points. First of all, as I say, we are looking for fact checking. We are looking for suggestions for evidence and also input on the clarity and coherence and readability. If you come across a paragraph that doesn't make a blind bit of sense to you, we'd like to know about it. However, we do not need comments on typos or proofreading or formatting. This is still a rough document. And note that there are some bits missing. There are some placeholders for events that haven't happened yet, or some evidence that we're looking to dig out. So, just know that it's still under construction. Another important point to make is that it is 300 pages. So you should not expect to read the thing. That would be too much. So I would encourage everybody to just look at the thing or look in the place where they have particular expertise. Again, as I outlined earlier in the presentation, some of the general content of the standards. And there's a link on this page to themes of the standards. And you can find it again here. So for instance, if you are involved in a learning community, well, this is going to be talked about quite a lot in Standard 2. So that's probably the one you want to look at. If you are on the IPC committee, well, you might want to have a look at Standard 1. Or if you were involved in writing the mission and value statements, you might want to have a look at that. If you're on the union, you might want to make sure that we've accurately described the evaluation process, and so on. The other tip is if you are involved in something specific, like a particular learning community, and really that's where your input's going to be most helpful, just do a Control F search on the document. If learning communities are talked about in Standard 2, just open up that PDF and do Control F emoji, and it will take you straight to the places where that gets described. And again, it's just a way of making this a manageable process for you. Oh, I'm out of my slideshow. Let's see. Back to my presentation mode. There we go. So if that will be the main way we will be soliciting feedback, if people could have a look at the relevant parts of the ISER and make any comments they feel need to be made. But just so you know, we're also going to, on March 7th, Flex Day, have a sort of information feedback table. We'll have copies of different bits of the ISER, and we will be inviting people to drop by, read a few pages, give us some feedback. So that will also be a possibility there. Thank you. Thank you for having a look at the ISER. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop us a line to Madeline Murphy.